I'm here, and here we go. I am actually looking in the Bible here at Galatians 2:7. Keep your roots deep in Him, build your lives on Him, and become stronger in your faith as you were taught, and be filled with thanksgiving. So I'm going to say it again because sometimes I have to read it twice to get it. Keep your roots deep in Him, talking about in God. Build your lives on Him and become stronger in your faith as you were taught, and be filled with thanksgiving. And so I know a lot of people wonder how I can be so strong with all the things that I've been through. And I think that verse really helps explain it. And that has taken me a lifetime of different lessons to learn to get there. But I really have focused on getting deeper rooted into my faith the past 20-ish years. And I am so grateful that I did, because I feel like in my 20s, in my early 30s, I knew the Lord, but I was bouncing all over the place, and I wasn't deeply rooted. And so when things would happen, I would be blown into the next storm and the next storm, and not with the peace that I have now. And then I was thinking this morning about the seasons and how, our seasons go. You usually think of summer, right, where everything is kind of warm and active and good, and hot if you're in South Florida, but good. And then you go into the fall and it cools off and everything just becomes so beautiful, and the leaves get their color and all the pumpkin stuff comes out, and of course football starts, which I love. And I love fall. That's definitely my favorite season. And then after fall comes the winter, and the leaves lose their color. The trees are bare. It's not as, in air quotes, pretty, but it's just part of life, and it's part of the season. And what follows winter is going to be spring, and for me, I enjoy the cooler weather, and then I know that spring is coming, and then I see, the leaves coming back on the trees, and I hear the birds chirping again, and you just kind of know, okay, I made it through the winter, and now I'm going back into the season. And I think for people who live in a more brutal winter environment, like Minnesota or someplace like that, they really, really look forward to the spring, because the winters are much longer than they are here in South Florida. So when I think about my life in the past 13 years, we'll say specifically, I have had a few, again, winter seasons that I've gone through, and some of them were very close back to back. And so I was gonna just share about my current one with the cancer, but I really think I feel more led to go back further. And for those who may not know my story, that are finding me here for the first time out on YouTube, I had some back-to-back pretty tough times. And it started in 2012 when I got pregnant with my first miracle baby, that I was 42. Yeah, 42. And this was without any type of in vitro or any assistance. It was all God, because I had already grieved that I wasn't going to be a mommy here on earth, and I had accepted that, and I had poured my love into all these other children. And Chris and I were living a fabulous life, and I would say we were in the season of fall. Everything was beautiful. Everything was colorful. We had just traveled to New York for 9 days, and our photography business was flourishing, and we were working together, self-employed, side by side, day by day. Everything was wonderful. It really, really was. And then I got pregnant, and we weren't expecting that. And then once we started to wrap our minds around that, we were getting excited. And it was our 12-week checkup that we had the ultrasound, and the heartbeat was good. We didn't see anything, but I had asked actually, we didn't do the ultrasound, we just did the heartbeat. So I asked if we could have an ultrasound, because there was a little concern they had at the 8 weeks. And so they accommodated me, and we had that ultrasound And I knew there was something wrong when the tech left the room, and she had asked me if I had gotten any testing done. So, long story short, we learned that day that our baby had some type of disorder, and then we had to get blood work done, and we learned that our baby had trisomy 18, which is a very rare genetic disorder where your body has a third I'm drawing a blank here because that's my chemo brain. But anyway, it's an 18 chromosome. There's the word I'm looking for, so sorry. So anyway, he had an extra 18 chromosome. And so it was already, we could already see on the ultrasound that he was getting extra fluid on his brain, and his heart was also getting extra fluid. And so we knew that it would most likely not be a full-term pregnancy, but we were leaving everything in God's hands and praying for that miracle. But after 17 weeks, I lost him, and that was baby Malachi, who we named and loved very much. He was very, very real to us. And that whole process was definitely a winter for me. Because all the beautiful leaves that I was seeing after getting pregnant, after all these years, had fallen off the trees so quickly. It was like a storm came through and blew them off. So then I had to really, dig deeper into my faith. And I trusted God. I had such a hole in my heart and such a yearning. And so I had prayed. There's a verse in Psalm, I think it's in chapter 37, and it talks about having the desires of your heart, the Lord giving you the desires of your heart. And I always thought that verse meant that he would give you what you wanted. And then I realized, no, I don't think that's what that verse is saying. I think that verse is saying that you pray that God puts his desires in your heart. And so that's what I started praying. Not what I want, but what you want. And if you want me to have a baby, then please keep the desire there and answer my prayer. And if you don't want me to have a baby, then please remove that desire from my heart, because it hurts. And I prayed that with full acceptance and full surrender. And it was 5 weeks after I lost Malachi that I got pregnant with Bryce, which is just another miracle in itself. And so all my seasons started over again. And, I was a little cautious. So I felt like getting pregnant with him was kind of spring. There were some leaves back on the tree, but they weren't fully flourished. I had to go to a specialist. I was under very close observation, but then, I got into my second trimester and everything was great. I didn't have to see the specialist anymore. I just had routine pregnancy visits and everything was great. And my pregnancy was great. I wasn't sick. After that first few weeks, everything was wonderful. I had a great pregnancy. And then we were into, the Bryce arrived. He was beautiful. I got to love on him. I was in the full fall season. My baby was in my arms after all these years. And then it was like a storm came through that could not have been predicted. So I would say it was more like a tornado. Where, if I'm going to give analogies, hurricanes, you kind of get a warning and you kind of prep. And that would have been my miscarriage. I kind of knew that could happen. But with Bryce, it was a tornado, like a 5 with no warning, and a Cat 5. I had fallen asleep. Chris was going home to shower because he had been there all night. And the nurse came and took Bryce to take him to the nursery so that he could be examined by the doctor who had come in that morning to check all his babies. And I went to sleep. And when I woke up, there was someone in my room that I had never seen before who asked me if anyone had told me that my baby was in NICU. I was kind of like, what? And then she goes, it's okay, he's breathing now. I'm not sure how much I heard after that, but okay. So I learned that Bryce had a brain hemorrhage while he was in the nursery. And then after having him transported to Miami Children's, they did more tests and they finally got the answers. We don't know why it happened. We just know that it did happen, and he had a massive brain bleed. And not only did it went into another area of the brain. So it was a grade 4, which is the worst, mainly in the area where his vision was. But they put him on seizure medication right away. And so the seizing stopped, and they no longer had to bag him for oxygen, and he was no longer intubated. He had a lot of wires all over him. And then we were just praying over him and trying to figure out what in the world happened and why is this happening, and is it going to be okay? And I got discharged from the hospital, and that morning and that night I'm driving to Miami, and it was just crazy storm. And but I was very deep rooted in my faith. I was especially deeply rooted because I had just gone through that storm with losing Malachi. And then there was Bryce. And so after a lot of prayer and miracles, genuine miracles that we all witnessed, Bryce was better, and he got to come home after 10 days instead of months like what we were told would happen. And not only that, he came home healthy. I mean, he was on a breathing monitor machine, and he was on seizure medication, but he never had another seizure that we witnessed, and he had no damage from the seizures that we could tell, and he was just hitting every milestone and pretty much on time, and it was truly amazing. And so we had a couple of years of spring that turned into summer, that was turning into fall, because right before his 2nd birthday we were able to wean him off of his seizure medication. And we thought at that point, wow, he's going to just really flourish now, because he's not going to have any medication that's slowing down his brain waves. And what's he going to do now? He's doing so amazing. And then we started seeing some odd behaviors. I especially noticed it. And some of that was flapping. Some of that was his words. His language had just kind of halted. And he could say a lot of single words, but he wasn't putting his words together, and he wasn't forming any kind of sentences or requests and things that are kind of typical for a 2-year-old. And so fast forward a few months, and we received his autism diagnosis. And that was another winter season, especially the first few years. And so I won't go into all of that now. What I just want to say is that life is full of seasons, and I have experienced them, and I have experienced them in a pretty significant way. But it definitely has been my faith that has gotten me through each of the seasons, and it's my faith that will continue to get me through those seasons. And I'm going to read the verse one more time, because now that you've kind of heard my story and my experiences, I think you will really understand that. And whatever you're going through, my prayer is that you'll be able to grab onto this verse and really understand it in a whole other way. So again, put my readers on, because I can't see without those. Keep your roots deep in him. Build your lives on him, and become stronger in your faith as you were taught. And here's the key. And be filled with thanksgiving. And that is really it. I mean, I really try to give God praise in every storm, because I have just learned to surrender to his will, trust his plans. And he never promised it would be easy. He just promised he would be with us. And at the end of the day, we're not here on earth for us. We are here for his kingdom and his glory. And that's how I want to live my life. And if this is how he can use me, is by taking me through these storms, building my faith, and then having me come in my office and sit here and record myself to share it with other people, so that they too can learn and draw closer to him. And I can be an encouragement to someone, then okay, then I accept that, and I embrace that. And it makes me feel happy that I can do something that can help other people. And I think that's just kind of how God has wired us. It's like if you can be a blessing, you're blessed. It's like sometimes when I give the gifts, like yesterday, I gave a birthday gift to a little boy who I just saw him light up when I gave it to him. And so being a blessing to him blessed me in return. And so being able to, share some of my journey, share how God is helping me on my journey, knowing that somebody is going to be watching this, listening to this, and that it's going to help them, then that fills my cup. So I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. And if you want to hear more, you can subscribe and you can share with somebody else who might also need it. All right, thanks so much. Bye. Hi everyone, I am back. I had another thought. I was thinking about the winter season, and how I was talking about how I had gone through a few winter seasons there in my life, and I was waiting for spring to come to bring some color and some hope again. And then I realized, wait a minute, we have beautiful snow that can come in the winter time that kind of gives us a lift up the spirits, lifts up my spirits. Encouragement, it could be from a friend, it could be from the Lord, it could be signs of hope that are there. And we may not see the green leaves, that spring is coming anytime soon, and the groundhog may not see his shadow to let us know that winter is ending soon. But I think, you can look at snow, especially when it first falls and it's coming from the sky, and then when a snowstorm comes through, I've seen the pictures where it's just beautiful and everything is glistening white and pure, and it hasn't become sludge or mud yet. It's still just a beautiful sight to see, and it doesn't last for very long. It usually will last a couple of days before it starts to melt away, but it's like something that just comes through in a really dark, gloomy season to brighten your spirits. And those things are there. We have to look for them. It's like if you were in your house and you're just in your bed and you're crawled up under your blankets and you didn't look out the window, you would miss the snow. So you gotta get up. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep looking out that window, even when you don't expect to see sunshine. You may not see sunshine, but you may see something that's beautiful that will lift your spirit and will keep you going and will get you to the next day. Because it's kind of how it is during those winter storms, is one day at a time. And I just hope that this little analogy that came to me will be helpful to you and will encourage you to not just stay in the house, so to speak, and stay under a cover, but to just keep going forward and keep looking out that window and keep looking for the signs of life and the signs of hope and the signs of beauty that are there for us. Okay, thanks.